YouTube creators, fair use, copyright on YouTube. This is 1.6 million views as of 4 years ago, and a lot can change, especially in regards to legality, in regards to copyright, and I wanted to make sure that I was doing my due diligence to react to this. I wanted to, as a denizen of YouTube, as it were, I wanted to make sure that I was, staying on top of things, and wanted to kind of see what the official YouTube fair use guidelines were, and how much that actually coincides to what I personally have experienced and other creators have experienced. Without further ado, let's get into YouTube's, as far as I'm aware, official YouTube creator guidelines for fair use and copyright.
Hi, I'm Sari, here to answer your copyright questions. Today's topic is fair use.
There's legal doctrine on this.
First, what is fair use? Fair use allows you to reuse copyright-protected material under certain circumstances without getting permission from the copyright owner.
Right.
Fair use is an exception to copyright law and is not determined by YouTube. Let me say that again.
This actually does hold true. So when it comes to fair use, right? So hypothetically, if Kip were going to post the entire Lord of the Rings Extended Edition Return of the King to YouTube, or Avengers Endgame to YouTube, it's not YouTube that flags that. It is the IP right, the holder, the copyright holder, whoever holds the legal right to use that, they are the ones that issue it. So, for example, right, in copyrights that I have experienced prior, we'll have entities that will say, hey, you are using our stuff. YouTube is just facilitating the middleman here. And this was due to, I believe it was the Viacom, a lawsuit that happened, like a decade past. This has very much been in the works for a while now. It is, yes, the holder of the legal right to whatever they're using, the copyright, IP, whatever, that is going to be issuing that. So, which then we lead into funny interactions, right? Where Nintendo is issuing a copyright notice. I think it was a claim specifically against Nintendo of America for Breath of the Wild. I think it was a Tears of the Kingdom content specifically, which leads to an international action there, which it can happen, and there is no fallout from that because it would be on Nintendo's part to litigate against Nintendo. Thus, Nintendo isn't going to litigate against Nintendo, and thus it's just a null interaction. Oh, cool, that happened. As well, I will also mention, because copyright claims and strikes both, and this is important to understand, both are a legal notice in nature, and I have actually talked to a number of companies on this point. I will send everyone, as soon as I send a counterclaim, I will send the exact same counterclaim by email to them, and I will say, you are sending me legal notice. By definition, a copyright claim is legal notice. And then I ask for, I need your paperwork, I need notarized and legal documentation to support this. I'm more than happy to facilitate in the takedown of content. I need to see receipts, though, which, a lot of them don't actually answer. To understand, though, when you get a copyright claim or a copyright strike, this is legal notice. By definition, this is legal. And furthermore, from my understanding, this must be submitted manually. They can use bots to find it, right? They can use AI, bots, etc., to find these videos, but the actual hitting that button, hitting submit, must be done by manual review. And so if you say, oh, well, no, it's our machine that caught it, that is incorrect. From everything I understand, everything I've read, everything that I've learned, you are manually having to agree to this. You are submitting legal claim by manual review. So that is important to understand about copyright in YouTube.
Again, YouTube does not decide what is fair use and what isn't.
Correct.
Only the court can do that. What counts as fair use? Different countries have different rules about when it's okay to use material without the copyright owner's permission. In some countries, it's not even called fair use. For example, in the UK, it's referred to as fair dealing. Aside from what your country calls it, courts usually focus on whether your use of another person's song or video is transformative.
And this, so I take issue with the sound specifically because, and this is actually a huge part, and I've been debating on doing a video about this, the band of Metallica is actually a huge reason why copyright on audio is so bad on YouTube. And that's why I personally will not listen to Metallica. Yeah, they have cool songs like One. I personally refuse to listen to them because they directly have impacted what I do and how hard my job can be at certain points. This is due to a lawsuit in which Metallica won, where they sued another artist over a chord progression. Not, how you have the Under Pressure and Ice Ice Baby, how they had kind of a similar chord structure. No, a chord progression. Metallica sued over chord progression and won. And that is why there is precedent for a lot of companies and a lot of entities to be able to say, well, you use 3 seconds of our video. I need you to take this down. And YouTube can uphold that. Or they can claim incorrect sections of your video. I have experienced personally, they've claimed incorrect sections of my video. I have like lint on my tongue. It's super weird. But where they've claimed incorrect sections of the video, right? So say, for example, my reaction is from 1 second to 23 seconds. The video plays from 23 seconds to 33 seconds. 33 seconds to a minute is my commentary. I will have them claim like 18 seconds to like a minute. And it overlaps with, but your audio is not playing in there. What gives you legal ability to claim me at that point? If you claimed, say, 23 seconds to 33 seconds, cool, we're in the same ballpark. I do hold companies and entities and claimants to a higher standard because realistically, there should be no reason which you cannot properly claim that. If it's playing in the background, that's a little different, right? But if I pause all audio and you claim that section, at that point, I'm going to argue, and I have argued this with a number of companies, I need to see your paperwork. I know you have it in the back end. I know you have access to a legal team. I need this documentation. For my records, I need this. And I think that should be normalized. I have done to a number of companies, a number of entities, whether they answer back or not is a different entirely. If you are going to issue me legal notice, I expect you to have the paperwork for legal notice. I don't think this is necessarily a hot take.
Basically, they're asking if you added new expression or meaning to the original work, or if it basically copies the original.
Right.
For example, in the US, content that might be considered fair use includes commentary, criticism, or news reporting. Also, and
this is the US specifically. So, for example, there is a JonTron video that I reacted to that will never see the light of day because YouTube ruled in favor of an Italian company that they owned a talking cat, and YouTube has upheld this. So meaning, I don't understand why the original video isn't affected by this, but YouTube did uphold saying they do have valid legal claim, which then would lead to a copyright strike, which we will cover later.
In mind that just because you say something's fair use, give credit to the copyright owner, or add a disclaimer like no infringement intended,
correct,
it does not mean that you're protected.
From a legal standpoint, I cannot react to Enter Sandman by Metallica, like a musician reacts to Metallica, right? I cannot react to Enter Sandman by Metallica and say, this is not, no infringement intended. This is, just commentary, fair use. Metallica, once again, being able to sue on a chord progression, their lawyers will be up my, can't say that. It will be up my annals of history, if you will. Their legal team would be so quick on that, it wouldn't even be funny. And that being said as well, I mean, we run into this with combat critiques I've done. There's certain combat critiques that I've had to, I've done on Twitch, but I can't actually, post to YouTube because, well, we're claiming this specific section. Just because you say it is fair use, just because you turn down the audio, just because you even trim out certain segments or try to put a filter over it, does not inherently protect you from that. And this is an important distinction to know.
How is fair use determined by law? Determining fair use is never a cut and dry process.
No, it's not.
In the US, fair use can only be determined in court by a judge.
Yes.
The judge will look at your case overall based on a few different factors. Here are a few things to keep in mind based on what the courts look at. You're less likely to qualify for fair use if your video merely copies someone else's and adds nothing else.
Yes.
If you're trying to monetize your video.
Yeah, 100%.
If you're using fictional copyrighted material rather than factual material. If you borrowed a large amount of material rather than a small portion. If the main focus of your video is the copyright protected material.
So here's the thing on this though, right? I can't say I own Grand Theft Auto, right? What if I were to do a bit on Grand Theft Auto 6, not using the trailer, but maybe I use some shots and it's, and I'm like, hey, I'm spending my time. I'm trying to do this. I want to make sure that if people want to watch it, I'm getting rewarded for my time for monetization, right? I think that we need to discuss copyright as a whole then. Because there is a difference between audio and video copyright. For example, I mean, I've done combat critiques that, I cut out the audio completely, and YouTube and the company at that point as well, because they do have bots that scan for this, seemingly have no issue with it. But as soon as you get audio involved, oh, by golly, you're in trouble, and why I'm such a big advocate for you need to take this to the companies themselves. Or the advertising agencies themselves. You should feel empowered to say, hey, I know you have a legal team. I need to see this. If you're going to issue me legal claim, you need to provide this material. And if that gets normalized, I guarantee you we're going to see some shift in policies. I don't understand what this fictional copyright material means. I hope they go over that. Like, if I make like brand, I can't even say brand X anymore because that's actually technically Elon at this point, right? Brand Y, right? Which hypothetically Elon could probably still sue over because similar, right? Or if I say like have Dove, right? How because Dove chocolate and Dove soap can exist. What if I make Dove power washers, right? Does that technically not qualify for fair use then? Or is that I feel that this is a large enough concept that is being glossed over. Your video merely copies, absolutely. I mean, that is one of the whole big things behind React content, right? Why React content creators like me are in the proverbial crosshairs a lot of the time. And we have large creators constantly saying that we add nothing to YouTube, that, you know, we are lesser, we are scum, we are willing to engage in certain heinous acts because we do React content, which I inherently disagree with. You know, I do understand that this is 100. If I were to make a Russian badger video, like badger video, right? So if I were going to do hamster chief lobsters the fort bite, but I make it like Mimster chief into soder, crabs the crown or something like that, right? You know, just like it's close enough, right? But it's beat for beat. I mean, like, cool, explains this, clip of this, explain it. Okay, realistically, what's the intent behind that, right? Like, if we're doing beat for beat, that's fine. And this gets into a gray area, because what if I do a review of, say, Dead Space 2, but someone says, well, you and Mandalore Gaming both do a Dead Space 2 review, you know, but this is where it starts getting into the gray territory. What's the intent behind it? How similar, how different is it? What constitutes as copying versus taking inspiration versus, unintended coincidence versus, no, these are completely different, right? Monetize, I disagree with the whole notion of that, because someone monetizes the video, from my understanding. Even if you don't monetize the video, you are still copyright. You are still subject to copyright. I cannot upload the entirety of the Beatles' Yellow Submarine. I cannot upload the entirety of Lord of the Rings Return of the King Extended Edition. I cannot do that, and even if I don't intend to monetize it, it will still get stricken down. So I think this is kind of a moot point. This might actually even be dated. Large amount of material. Once again, this is up for a court of law to determine. You know, what about people that what is the new React content meta, where you have like the top of your screen is like the video or whatever you're watching, and the bottom half is like the car games or whatever, the coin games, whatever, right? Like, what about that, right? What if your whole video is just that? Does resizing the material count? Is it the kind of material that you use? Does gaming differ versus animation? Does that differ versus movies? Does movies differ from YouTube videos? Do they differ from streams? There's a lot that encompasses this, and I feel that this video so far is kind of glossing over a lot of important details. But then again, this video should realistically be at least an hour, in my opinion. Main focus is the copyrighted material. So you're saying that every GTA 5 streamer out there is, for all intents and purposes, in the crosshairs of who is it? It's not Naughty Dog, whoever their publisher is. I don't actually care about GTA. If you care about it, cool. I can't be bothered. Or, for example, if 343 or Microsoft started getting really upset about Halo content, right? And they're just like, hey, well, we're just going to start, you know, your whole video is playing Halo Infinite, right? Rockstar, thank you. Your whole video is playing Halo Infinite. You know, we're gonna copyright that, right? There is a lot here that at face value, okay, this gets your feet in the water, but I would hardly call this a guide officially from YouTube.
Or if your use of the material harms the copyright owner's ability to profit from their original.
Yes, so this is actually a very dangerous scenario, actually. If I made a video on the Nintendo Switch, and I were to say I don't like the Nintendo Switch, I think that it's not that, you know, it's a fragile console. I don't like this. I think some of the older consoles are better. Would that constitute harming their brand? What constitutes harming their brand? Because this is a broad umbrella term, and I guarantee you a legal team looked this over to word this in a way where it gets you the general gist, but it is left vague enough on purpose that anything can qualify in this. If I were to make a video and I'm completely slagging off, I don't know, Hershey's chocolate, right? Or Snickers, right? Okay. Maybe they're going to get upset at that, right? And I think that's completely fair, right? I think that's fair. However, what if I make a video on Lord of the Rings Middle-earth Gollum, right, and say it's an awful game, and then you get the Tolkien estate, or you get some of these game studios that had a hand in it, and go, actually, Kip, you know, you are saying some stuff that actually is going to harm our brand. We're going to litigate against you. Do you see where this is going to lead to a very negative sum game at this point. I understand what they're going for. For example, if I'm going to say, I disagree with YouTube because of this and because of these actions, or for instance, if I bring up the fact that Jared Fogle was the head of and face of Subway for a number of years, would Subway or YouTube be able to litigate against me? What is the interaction here? And the fact that this is left vague enough that I would argue your average person isn't going to really know what to do with this is problematic from an official YouTube creator's guide.
It'll work. So, all of these are helpful factors to consider when thinking about fair use.
Correct.
But also keep in mind, there is no guarantee that you'll qualify for fair use just because you take these factors into account.
Yes.
For example, just because you don't monetize your video, or if you only use a small portion of the copyrighted material, that does not mean you automatically qualify for fair use.
Once again, Metallica sued and won over a chord progression. Everyone, Angry Joe's been a creator that's been in the sphere for a long time. He'll regularly cite 7 seconds. That is, especially with audio, that is unfortunately not the case. Over a chord progression, you could hypothetically still be copyrighted. Normally, it results in a claim. However, strikes are possible. I'm hoping it goes over that.
Again, the courts look at everything holistically, and there's always a risk involved when using someone else's copyrighted work.
Correct.
Think carefully about all of these factors and get legal advice if needed.
Yes.
Companies are claiming just a few seconds of a video. How is that not abuse? One of the biggest myths about fair use is that there's a minimum amount of time you're allowed to use someone else's copyrighted work.
Often 7 seconds is cited.
But despite what some people may think, there is no duration in which you can use someone else's content that is automatically protected under fair use. In fact, courts have rejected fair use arguments for songs that only sample a few seconds of someone else's work. So if you're using any amount of content that you don't own, even if—
I'm surprised they haven't mentioned Metallica by name. Like, I don't understand why people don't mention it. Either they don't know or they just don't want to name them. Like, I mean, own it at that point, right? At that point, your legal team won over a chord progression, right? Like, shouldn't you own that? And shouldn't you, like, well, our music is going to be native to these platforms that we like. These are our platforms. You should go watch our music on these platforms, or listen to this music, I guess I should say. So I guess I'm a little confused on that. Just cite your source on that. Don't leave it vague. What's your source? What companies have done this? What entities have done this on Metallica? I have had music copyright holders, like the copyright-free music, quote unquote, how they're held by certain entities. I've had those do it a number of times. Just say it.
in a few seconds, you're taking a risk of receiving a claim or a takedown.
Yeah.
You have the right to argue fair use, but only courts, not YouTube, can ultimately decide whether the use of someone else's content is protected under fair use.
Yes.
Because of this, our approach has been to empower creators to remove claimed content whenever possible if they feel that it isn't adding significant value to their video.
This is actually why there's certain segments of my video that are muted or that are cut out specifically. So there's certain videos that, yeah, oh, Kip, why are you muted at this point? Because I lost that copyright claim fight. I either just take the video down entirely or I mute that specific segment of the video. It's like which gets into strikes once again. I guess let's just cover that right now. In regards to YouTube, there are two things realistically that can happen. You can either get a copyright claim or you can get a copyright strike. Both of these are by definition legal in nature. A copyright claim is kind of a soft notification, if you will. It is still, in my opinion, very serious. And what happens is, say, for example, if I were to use a single riff from Enter Sandman by Metallica, focusing on them because this is relevant to the topic, I can get Metallica, someone on behalf of Metallica, the record holder of Metallica, etc. They can issue me a, we're going to issue a claim. You used our copyrighted content. You did take this risk. We are going to be taking the revenue for the entire video. So say I did a 7-hour breakdown on a retrospective of the Elder Scrolls for Oblivion, right? And I did a 1 second, 2 second clip of Metallica audio, right? For, I don't know, maybe like the King of Worms, but not Maker Cameron, whatever, King of Worms quest, right? And I did that. They would claim the revenue for the entire video. Thus, leading into the argument, do you cut that out? Do you mute that? Do you take down the entire video? 7 hours of a video can be taken down at a moment's notice. And you have very real little say in that. So what ends up happening in that case is because YouTube, as far as I'm aware, is a safe haven. Anybody, even if they're not the actual copyright holder, anybody can realistically issue a takedown. They can say, hey, or claim, hey, this is our content, you're using this, and YouTube has to kind of be in the middle. They have to kind of mediate that. Well, we received this claim. It is up to you guys to discuss it and hash it out later, which is why we get into situations where videos getting demonetized or getting claimed right off the bat are a problem, because it will kill that initial burst of a video, especially if it gets demonetized or age restricted, like in the case of a Russian Badger video, the Rainbow Six Sledge one, right, with the Master Chief in it, how that got a age restrict right out the gate. That kills it in the YouTube algorithm. So it's problematic because creators can put in all this time and effort and take every precaution possible, but on a whim, advertiser agencies, YouTube itself, IP and copyright holders, or even random fraudulent third-party claimants can come in and they can just kill momentum. I would argue it's not React's content that's killing YouTube. I would argue it's false claimants. And if anything, part of the claimant process, which we're going to get into strikes now, a claim is a soft one. You can get any number of claims from my understanding. You may only get 3 strikes in a rolling 90-day period. If you accumulate more than 3 rolling, I think it's 3. Yeah, it is 3. And you can technically go more because multiple can be claimed, multiple can be striked. If you go 3 or more in a 90-day rolling period, you are terminated off the platform. You're just done. Right. So say if I had an outro that resembled a riff from any Metallica song, and that record label decided to take interest in me, bam, 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 they don't have to. Generally, they'll stop at claims, but a company or entity can go ahead into a strike. Strikes are the big ones. Strikes are the ones that actually matter in regards to your account and monetization as well. So how the progression of this works, and I've been asked, hey, can you make a video on this? And video could be inbound if people are willing enough to want clarification on this to a degree. Is that a claim, you just submit a counterclaim. Hey, this is what this is. I believe this is fair use. These are the reasons why. I regularly hit character cap on that. I will just say that. I'm probably a headache for a number of companies out there because I hit character cap on that. And you have to sign your legal name. So I don't sign mine Kizuna Kip. I sign my legal name, and that goes off to whoever. The problem becomes, if they are a third-party fraudulent claimant. For example, I've had videos claimed by companies from South America, companies from Italy, companies from the UK, Sweden, Netherlands, etc. I've had companies outside the US I have had to provide my actual legal name to. Even if they're a fraudulent claimant or they decide to drop that claim, now they have my personal identifying information. You see how this is problematic. If it was something like Sony has it, whatever, they have my credit card on file anyways. If it was Microsoft, Nintendo, grats, I buy product from them anyways. But if it's like Telemundo Brazil or something, I've had South American companies claim my stuff before, right? Why do they have access to my personal identifying information now? And that's why I also message, I need everything with my personal identifying information back from you. Now, that's just if we're doing a claim. And at that point, a claim can go 30 days, 30 calendar days. They have to respond. I think that companies and entities making claims should be on top of that. They should be limited to no more than 72 hours. So in the instance, right, if I were to infringe on Metallica's right and ownership of music, right, and they were to issue me a claim and I were to counter that claim, they should only have 72 hours to respond because they should realistically have all the paperwork on hand, right? You have a little folder and this is, oh yeah, this is all our IPs. Yes, this legal document shows, hey, Metallica owns this. Kip, get bent. Well, they wouldn't say that, right? But they'd be like, look, we own this. Hey, thank you for providing this. You did provide this. I am in the wrong here. I will absolutely edit my video and take this out. Makes perfect sense to me. Why does someone that cares about their IP need 30 calendar days? I think that this is egregious. I think that this makes fraudulent claimants way more brazen and brash. I think that this is incredibly detrimental to the health of YouTube as a whole. I think that it should be 72 hours for the claimant to respond. 72 calendar hours, not business hours. I think this is fair. So that leads into the last point, which is a strike. What happens if your claim is rejected, right? So say, for example, in this hypothetical instance, I'm in violation of Metallica copyright and they decide to claim my stuff, right? Cool. Awesome. Now we're here. Now, I can either let the claim stand and cool, grats, I either just don't publish that video, I take that video down, I edit the chunks out, whatever, right? That's what I do. Or I attempt to file a counter strike. Doing that requires a little bit more information. I think it's your legal home address. You need to do your legal name once more, and there's stuff that needs to get filled out after that point. The issue is when you submit a counterstrike, as far as I'm aware, they have 7 days to respond to this. I think it's 7 calendar days. If it is rejected, the entity must litigate against you because it is to protect their copyright. So in the instance, if I'm going to fight for Metallica copyright, and I say, well, I disagree with this. I disagree that this claim should be here. I'm going to file a counter strike, and I file that counter strike, and it comes back, well, Kip, you don't have rights to this, and they won that. Now, whoever is on behalf of Metallica or the record, that whoever is sending that strike or has gotten to this point must actually litigate against me. We enter full legal proceedings. Everything before this, yes, is legal by definition, but now they, as far as I'm aware, they're actively suing me because I am trying to take their brand away from them. Thus, which makes sense, is to protect their brand. That is why I will always echo the sentiment at this point in time that I will fight a claim. I am not able to fight strikes. And yes, some claimants absolutely can say, you're trying to counter-strike against us. We'll just drop it, bro. It's not worth it, right? Absolutely, that can happen. And even then, I cannot legally advise you on copyright strikes. I can't say do this, right? I can say this is how you do this. I cannot tell you you go and counter-strike this, because at that point I am giving legal advice, and then I am on the chopping block for that. So if you're wondering why Kip is sometimes so stressed out with copyright, all of that and more. If you're curious about YouTube, you might want to look into this process.
That's why we've built tools to help you easily identify the content being claimed in your video and remove or swap out claimed music with copyright-safe tracks from the free YouTube audio library. We're also now—
That is a good tool that I actually need to be utilizing more.
Requiring claimants to add timestamps to these claims, so
correction. You are required that claimants add timestamps for manual claims. The timestamps can be absolutely incorrect. In YouTube, if you're watching, I have had multiple instances of this where companies have claimed, once again, as React content, say 10 seconds to 30 seconds, it's me talking. 30 seconds to 45 seconds is the video. I pause the video at 45 seconds, and I go 45 seconds to a minute, and I am the only one talking. They will claim 13 seconds to like 58 seconds. They do not have to claim it correctly, and that is an issue with the platform. Once again, I have had to deal with this. I have lost claims to this. I think I have a leg to stand on knowing what I'm talking about.
Know exactly which piece of your video is being claimed. We've also updated our editing tools so that when you remove the content manually claimed in your video, the claim is automatically released, restoring monetization to your video if you were previously monetizing.
So how that works specifically, well, Kip, what happens if your video is, what happens if they claim it? And so in claiming the video and them, winning benefit of the doubt and getting all the monetization, what happens if you file a counterclaim or a counter strike? Glad you asked that. I don't think the counter strike is much different. I can explain the claim portion of that, actually. So what happens is it actually goes into escrow. And I'm pretty sure if you've dealt with homes, you've had to deal with escrow account, right? What it means by escrow is that you say it is me, and once again, Metallica, because relevant to the work, right? If I do something, Metallica, someone on behalf of Metallica, etc., tries to, oh, hey, no, we're going to copyright claim you or strike me, right? And, then they would get all the monetization from that. However, if I file that counterclaim or counter strike, that would go into an escrow account. It's gone to a holding account, and the funds are then released to whichever party wins this. So say, for example, hypothetically, if I win it, the video is immediately remonetized and in my favor, and then all that money goes to me. However, if I don't win, all of that monetization in that escrow account will go to whoever the claimant is. So that is what you also have to deal with as well. And this can also be held up. So say, for example, if I put out a large video, it gets 30,000 views, and I wish 30,000 views, and then it company says, oh, no, claim it, right? It says, we're going to copyright this, and then the claim is there, and then I file the counterclaim within literally the first few hours, and it takes them 30 calendar days to do it. Guess what? That's released to me not on the paycheck that I needed on, but a later paycheck. So companies can actually mess around, or claimants, I should stop saying companies, claimants can actually mess around with your pay, so to speak, if they deem it worth their time, because they can just let these claims sit for up to 30 calendar days. Just something that, can hypothetically come up.
Why does my content, which is clearly fair use, keep getting
You are correct. And that is where false claimants are getting paid from the escrow agreements, benefiting them because they don't actually have to provide anything, and they have to scare people into submission, which, yes, I do resemble the sentiment in chat. If anyone can claim anything, there should absolutely be a system in place that the quote-unquote claimant has to supply all forms of legal documentation. If it proves false, then they are ignored. Exactly. I think, why isn't this part of the system to begin with? It has to be part of the system, right? So for instance, I could hypothetically, I love him, don't get me wrong, I would not do this. hypothetically, I could say, oh, Russian Badger, I own your content, right? What stops that? What stops me from actually supplying this? What stops me from making this claim? One, it makes me look like a dick. I'm not going to do it. Two, I love the Russian Badger. If you have a problem with Russian Badger, I mean, I don't know. Like, he's just a super legit dude. I love him and his whole team. Like, come on. And like, what stops me from that? Or do there's got to be some kind of give and take here. You should have to provide notarized and legal documentation. Am I right? Like, this should be just the expectation. At the very least, right? If somebody were to use my thing, it's like, hey, you're using my video. Like, if I message someone privately, right? Hey, you're just doing a re-upload of my video. Like, I'm fine with reactions. Just please be transformative, right? Like, can you like redo this? Cool. Like, I own that content, right? Or if I made his track, right? Hey, this is what says that I own this track, right? I think this is not a hot take by any means.
Claimed by Content ID. Automated systems like Content ID can't determine fair use,
Correct.
which is a subjective case-by-case decision that can only be made by a court.
Yes.
While YouTube can't arbitrate fair use disputes, and automated systems like Content ID can account for fair use, this doesn't mean that fair use can't exist on YouTube. If you're a creator, you should avoid relying on fair use unless you understand how the rules work and you're prepared to defend your position through the Content ID dispute process and potentially the counter notification process.
I would absolutely love for this to be true, but we've seen multiple times that if you're larger, sometimes fair use just doesn't apply to you. Right? How many big React content creators are less transformative than I am? And it's fine. They don't get hit with half the shit I get hit with. Maybe it's because I'm pausing so much. I have no idea. I have yet for someone to actually be able to explain why I'm getting hit with so much copyright when we have big React content creators all the time not getting touched by it. I don't know. I'd love to know the answer. I'd love to know the secret.
This forces the claimant to withdraw or to file a lawsuit. This isn't a decision that should be taken lightly or without legal advice, but it is the most powerful step you can take if you want to pursue a fair use defense, and will force the most thoughtful review from the claimant. And that's it for fair use. Check out more info in our help center linked in the description below, and be sure to check out the other videos in our copyright series linked here. Bye.
No, she did a good job. She did a good job presenting. Understand my frustration is more with the actual function of YouTube. This is also 4 years ago, so I mean, stuff has, I would argue, changed since then. No, there is a lot that comes to YouTube copyright, and if you watch this video to the end, one, thank you. I really appreciate this. I didn't intend this to be a half hour. Two, hopefully this was insightful into, one, the world of copyright in YouTube, at least at a surface level. And two, hopefully it justifies some of the stress that I go through on a regular basis, especially getting as many copyright claims as I have, you know, on the content that does do well. I try to diversify my content. Not everything does well, and you know, that's okay. So it was short, sweet, to the point. It is informative. I would argue that it is missing a lot of it. It didn't go into that claimants, you know, what happens if a claimant lets the 30 days expire. At that point, if the claimant lets 30 calendar days expire, and after your counterclaim, it will just get released back to you. There's some niche interactions with that I take a little bit of issue with, but hopefully this was insightful. And as I would honestly recommend, treat this as a starting point. If you are in a situation, whether you are concerned if you have to counterclaim, counterstrike, deal with companies, I would absolutely recommend seeking out legal counsel. I would absolutely recommend seeking it out. I cannot advise you realistically, and as far as I'm concerned legally, to actually put forth a counterclaim or a counterstrike. What I can say is this is how the process works. This is things you have to think about. That decision ultimately relies up to you and whatever potential legal counsel that you yourself go into, is how I'm going to say it. But alas, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think this was informative? Do you not think this was informative? Would you like a Kip video on this where I edit some stuff together, do some stuff, kind of explain this a little bit more in detail? Let me know in the comment section, all that fun stuff. Let me know if you didn't know about the Metallica chord progression lawsuit. Let me know if you knew about the progression lawsuit. Let me know if you're a specialist in it or have a video that has been done on it, because I'm very interested to actually signal boost that, because this is actually why a lot of modern audio problems and copyright exist on YouTube. It is a direct correlation and causation on that. But alas, let me know, and I will see you all in the next one.